West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Well, the day after Joe Biden's State of the Union address, which is by far the most clever State of the Union address ever delivered, and if you predicted that the oldest person to ever deliver a State of the Union address would go off script and extemporaneously pull the opposing party into a trap that they will spend the year trying and failing to get out of, well, congratulations, because none of the rest of us predicted that. But the day after that historically clever and otherwise successful speech will be remembered in congressional history as the day that these words entered the congressional record for the very first time in the 234-year history of the Congress of the United States.
Pussy ass bitch.
Those words will now live in the congressional record forever, and those words will reside in the congressional record forever as a description of Donald Trump. That is one of the accomplishments of a House of Representatives hearing called by Republicans today, a hearing whose purpose was easily dismantled by the Democrats who participated in the Republican organized hearing. Two of those Democrats will join us in a moment, including, as I said, the youngest member of the House of Representatives, who easily outwitted the Republicans on that committee, including Jim Jordan. The point of the hearing for Republicans was to prove that a New York Post article was censored in the last days of the 2020 presidential campaign. The proof that it was not censored was standing there in the center of the room for the entire hearing. The article about Hunter Biden's laptop appeared, as you just saw, on the front page of the New York Post on October 14, 2020. That article was available worldwide on the New York Post website. That article had a larger readership than the New York Post coverage of the Civil War, or of World War I, World War II, the assassination of President Kennedy, the assassination of Martin Luther King, the moon landing, the decision by the United States Supreme Court to award the presidency to George W. Bush over Al Gore. The New York Post's front page article about Hunter Biden's laptop had a wider circulation than any of those other stories. But Republicans claimed the story was censored because Twitter did not immediately help to increase the circulation of that article. It took Twitter 2 days to allow links to that article to appear on Twitter. 2 days. Republicans are now pretending that Donald Trump lost the presidential election on October 14th and 15th because Twitter did not allow links to that New York Post article for those 2 days. And by the time Twitter decided to allow links to that article, on October 16th, Donald Trump had already hopelessly lost the presidential election, according to the Republican theory advanced in this hearing today. That's one of the theories of the hearing today. The other theory for Republicans today is that Twitter blocked links to that article for 2 days because Joe Biden ordered them to. That is, Joe Biden, private citizen running for president of the United States, somehow ordered Twitter, and only Twitter, to not link to that article. Why Joe Biden did not use that same superpower with Facebook was left an unsolved mystery by the Republicans in the hearing. What today's hearing ended up proving is that Joe Biden never asked Twitter to block links to that article. In fact, the hearing proved that Joe Biden has never asked Twitter to do anything. And at the same time, the Republican organized hearing proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump, as president of the United States, did tell Twitter to take down tweets that he did not like.
On September 8th, 2019, at 11:11 p.m., Donald Trump heckled two celebrities on Twitter, John Legend and his wife, Chrissy Teigen, and referred to them as the musician John Legend and his filthy-mouthed wife, unquote.
Chrissy Teigen replied to Donald Trump's tweet with a tweet of her own. Here is the description of that tweet.
What was the tweet about?
Would you like me to give the direct quote?
Yeah.
Please excuse my language. This is a direct quote, but Chrissy Teigen referred to Donald Trump as a pussy-ass bitch.
Okay. Free speech. And what happened after Ms. Teigen posted her tweet? What did the White House do? What did the Trump White House do?
From my understanding, the White House reached out to ask that this tweet be removed.
The Trump White House reached out, not an agency, but the White House reached out and requested that you remove the tweet.
From my understanding, yes.
Here's the front page of today's New York Post. It echoes, on page one, the kind of heckling that was thrown at Joe Biden from the back of the room last night by the uncouth Marjorie Taylor Greene. The New York Post ran its version of a fact check of the State of the Union address on page 5 today. The first line of the fact check quotes President Biden saying some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. And underneath that, the New York Post uses the label truth. For an astonishing lie of its own, the New York Post in writing today said that what President Biden said about Social Security was, quote, the biggest lie of the night. No one has proposed this. That is the New York Post, founded by Alexander Hamilton, now owned by Rupert Murdoch, trafficking in a pure, unadulterated lie in print. The New York Post says no one has proposed this. Today, President Biden fact-checked the New York Post and Marjorie Taylor Greene and all of the Republicans who are lying when they say that no Republican wants Social Security to sunset, another term for expire.
I remind you that Rick Scott from Florida, the guy who ran the U.S. Senate campaign, has a plan. I got his brochure right here. Has a plan. Here's what he says in his plan. Let me open it up here. Sorry. He says, all federal legislation sunsets every 5 years. If the law is worth keeping, Congress can pass it again. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And by the way, you have a senator named Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson on Social Security and Medicare, quote, we should transfer everything, so we have to consider everything every year.
Kevin McCarthy may be the least intelligent Speaker of the House in history, but he is way smarter than Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Republican noisemakers in the back of the room last night. He was constantly signaling them to be quiet.
We're in the people's house. It's our duty to protect all the people's rights and freedoms. Congress must restore the right and fentanyl is killing more than 70,000 Americans a year. Big, you got it.
Yes, there's that McCarthy mouth movement that's supposed to quiet them down and failed. When Marjorie Taylor Greene and the other shouters called the president a liar for saying some Republicans want to end Social Security and Medicare and others want to cut them, President Biden pulled the entire Republican Party in the House of Representatives into a public agreement that they will not dare to touch Social Security.
As we all apparently agree, Social Security and Medicare is off the books now, right? They're not to be sponsored. All right. We got unanimity. Social Security and Medicare are a lifeline for millions of seniors. Americans have to pay into them from the very first paycheck they started. So tonight, let's all agree, and we apparently are, let's stand up for seniors. Stand up and show them. We will not cut Social Security. We will not cut Medicare.
Even Kevin McCarthy himself, by the end of that, was forced to stand and add his applause on the video record forever that they will not touch Social Security. Kevin McCarthy just sat there watching as the most out-of-control audience for the State of the Union in history gave away all of Kevin McCarthy's negotiating points, thanks to Joe Biden's written text laying a trap for them, and then Joe Biden's quick, extemporaneous cleverness locking them in that trap of their own making. Republican Senator Mike Lee was not one of the Republicans yelling at the president about Social Security. He was just stunned, just sitting there looking stunned that the president could ever say that any Republican wanted to harm Social Security. Today, President Biden quoted Mike Lee saying this.
It will be my objective to phase out Social Security, to pull it up by the roots and get rid of it. Here, here. People who advise me politically always tell me that's dangerous, and I tell them, in that case, it's not worth my running. That's why I'm doing this, to get rid of that. Medicare and Medicaid are of the same sort and need to be pulled up.
It is Thursday, the 9th of February of 2023, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life, indeed. Well, how are you? Looks like the Republican majority in the House continue in lock goose step. Can I mix those metaphors, those memes? I will. And I do all the time. Yes, they are. And they are all about, well, I think the term is gaslighting. Other people might call it just merely lying. But gaslighting means a little bit something. And it's like lying, but it's to achieve something a little bit more insidious. Some people might call that brainwashing, while others say brainwashing doesn't exist. I know. That's how you can tell you're brainwashed. Well, James Comer yesterday, during one of his hearings, or one part of his hearing yesterday, right after, I believe it was Biggs. Was it Biggs? Or was it... I apologize. Maybe it was that Clay guy. Clay Higgins. Clay? Yeah. Texas fella. Jarhead. Domehead. Said that they were going to go after the former Twitter executives and arrest them on some, I don't know, some crime. They have to pull them over because of a broken taillight first. They have to say they were driving recklessly, and then, they'll beat the crap out of them, and That'll be it. That'll be that. While Berbert, one of the Nazi fraus in the Congress there, she was all upset because apparently her Twitter reach had been diminished in some fashion. She had been shadow banned. Oh, give me a break. I can't tell you how many times. I know Twitter and Facebook are a little different, but I was banned on Facebook for 30-day increments for the whole of the Trump presidency. And then we find out through clever questioning and I think anticipation of what these idiots were going to do, it was exposed by the Democratic members of these committees that indeed it was Trump who weaponized government. Oh, I know we're still going to get that committee with Jim Jordan. Just you wait. And only Trump who did this, whereas Biden has made no suggestions or requests that anybody be silenced. Because Dark Brandon doesn't need to. All right. It will not have much of an effect, I fear, because the propaganda is that good. My Twitter feed is just full of GOP gaslighting bullshit. Now, I go to Mastodon. It's pretty quiet over there. I go there just to sort of decompress a little bit, post a few things. It isn't quite challenging in terms of, vigor and debate and whatnot. But it is a cesspool over there at Musk's Twitter. How dare he? Jeez. It's like taking some great brand and destroying it. And how many times have we seen that happen before? That's right. American business and capitalism. Uh-huh. Okay. Well, so I got quite tired of just all the people that I used to see in my timeline and all the news that would scroll past because of those people that I follow and follow me. I don't see them anymore, and it's not because they quit. They still have accounts. They may not be posting as much. I understand and I agree that could impact how the algorithm works. And I know that if I engage with Marsha Blackburn, I'm going to get Marsha Blackburn in my feed. But somebody's got to call them Nazi propagandist, goose-stepping, seditious insurgents. Because that's what they are. All right. But anyway, it's quite tiresome. And I could see how it works. They just gish-gallop you with it. Everything that you know to be true is suddenly not true. They just gaslight the hell. Minutes after this Clay, whatever domehead guy is, I think it's Higgins, said that they were going to arrest these Twitter executives, Comer said, no, that never happened. As if we can't go back to the tape. But he's not trying to convince us. They are looking for sound bites for Fox so Fox can continue its propaganda under the aegis of free speech. I've been wanting Fox off of military bases and installations here in the United States and around the world for a few decades now. Is it any wonder we have a Nazi problem in the military? I wonder how that happened. Not that Fox is solely responsible. I'm just saying. Gets reinforced. Some of those elements are already there and have been there for quite some time. Just needs to be reinforced. So you have this background all the time disseminating this false information and you never quite remember where you heard it, but you just know it to be true. And we are the ones who have been indoctrinating people by simply telling the history of these great United States, blemishes and all. Do we really need to puff ourselves up to be real? This Bridget Gabriel lady says that the reason we hate Trump so much is because he's a real man. Well, I got to tell you, orange pancake makeup and a wispy bouffant comb-over really reeks of real manhood, doesn't it? If you're turned on by that, I don't know, more power to you. Jesus. I don't know how anybody could be. My idea of a real man kind of incorporates the ability to help with the birth of their child, change diapers, sit in hospice, build a house, build a freestanding Sonoma moss stone wall, sail a boat, split wood. Real men. Okay, well, to each their own, I guess. And that's why we are where we are. Because we keep saying to each their own, as if these Nazis have had some sort of equality within our public sphere, and now everything we warned about is coming true. We were laughed at. Oh, you're just exaggerating. You're blowing things out of proportion. No, it can't happen here. And it was. And it had already. How many thousands of KKK members marched down Pennsylvania Avenue back in the day? We're back there again. We even have MAGA ISIS truck caravans just to show people they better watch out. Okay. And the boogaboo of socialism and the other. Oh, we have a crisis at the border and it's all these liberals' fault. Xenophobic my ass. And they do this every single time. I mean, you and I know. I'm preaching to the choir, I understand. But they've been pulling this BS since before the Sikhs landed in Sacramento in the mid to late 1800s. Brown hordes are coming to our great land and bringing pestilence and drugs. Yeah, it was the land. Just a little tidbit of information here. It was the Sikhs landing in Sacramento that brought on the first drug laws because these Asians were bringing bad things to our country. Right. As if there weren't already bad things in our country already. A whole industry putting cocaine into elixirs. Or any other number of things. Straight opium sometimes, too. Here, have some opium. Right here. You got a cough? No problem. Your baby's teething? Give him some opium. It's a miracle. Okay. But when the shit hits the fan and you find out that all that fentanyl that you've been creating is, I don't know, somehow contaminated, or a lot more people using it in quantities you didn't expect, and, where's your market going to go? Well, you got to blame somebody, so blame the brown people coming across the border, escaping war, pestilence, rape, asylum seekers with their children just trying to get away, find a new life, try to find some sanctuary so that they can breathe and then get on their feet again, and we're going to demonize those people? As if that has never happened before. That's why they don't want us to know any of the history of what's going on. Because patriotic Americans would look at that and go, you know what? From our mistakes, so shall we learn. And so shall we learn to change, so that we do not make those mistakes again. Rather than, I'm going to embrace this mistake, not call it a mistake, and double down. Jesus. Okay. Free will. You do know we have a curated show for you today. Indeed, we do. And I got to thank Chrissy Teigen. I really do. She had no idea that pussy-ass bitch would be in the congressional record and attached to her name for calling Trump a pussy-ass bitch. Free speech. Had her taken down. And it wasn't just, like banning her or suspending her from Twitter. There was then a concerted campaign to get her marketing line taken off of any kind of distribution channel. Get her off QVC, get her off the home style networks. She even had a show. Lost that. Because Trump is a pussy-ass bitch. See? And it wasn't just her that he tried to destroy. I think they got a little bit more wherewithal than Trump expected, And some people aren't really intimidated by his bombast and litigious terrorism. But Trump's a pussy-ass bitch, and now it's in the congressional record for all to see for all time. On the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy as we begin this fabulous Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, a former deputy alleges in a lawsuit there is another cop gang forming at the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. They've been having a lot of trouble with cop gangs. A broadcast reporter was arrested for trespassing while covering a news conference about the Ohio toxic train derailment. DeWine did apologize, but still. And the Missouri Republican-led House voted against banning minors from openly carrying guns in public without adult supervision. Okay, that sounds safe. After the break, we move to the chef's table where China says it was smeared in Joe Biden's State of the Union speech because of the repeated use of competition. And Twitter's plan to cut off free access to its application programming interface, the API, has evoked a fair amount of panic among scientists around the world. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. Across the page from that chat room link near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon page. And please do become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. It really does help. And thank you to those of you who have been so generous over these many years in allowing us to fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter or Mastodon, you can do so at Netroots Radio. In fact, you can follow us on both, so do. Tom takes care of those platforms, and thank you, Tom. Follow me on Twitter and Mastodon at Justice Putnam. I hope to get my Spoutable account open today. I just hope, because today is supposed to be the official opening, but like any new startup like this, there's going to be some bugs, and I appreciate that Mr. Boozy is taking the time to attend to those bugs before opening it up to the mob of masses, which we are, and we want to be there. So you can find me at Justice Putnam on those platforms, and I incidentally post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos 10 minutes before showtime. And as you know, that's where you can read the actual articles. Indeed. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and please do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. Okay, burned up a lot of time in the morning rant. Oh my gosh. Anyway, this first offering here is out of the Los Angeles Times by Carrie Blankinger. Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies are forming a new gang in the agency's East LA station, according to a deputy who alleges in a lawsuit he was abused when he refused to join the group. Amiel Garfias filed his lawsuit in Superior Court last month, claiming he was harassed, assaulted, and purposely put in harm's way by an alleged member of the new gang. But the county and several sheriff's employees, both the county and several sheriff's employees should be held responsible for allowing the East LA station to remain under gang control, the lawsuit states. The sheriff's department did not respond to a request for comment, and attorneys for the county have not yet responded to the lawsuit in court. The lawsuit comes less than a year after the independent watchdog over the department, Inspector General Max Huntsman, compiled a list of more than 40 sheriff's deputies who he said were members of gang-like groups operating in several stations. The list included 11 alleged members of the Bandidos, a group in the East LA station. It is disheartening to see that after one deputy gang has come to light, waiting in the wings is a new one, said Humberto Guizar, the attorney representing Garfias in his lawsuit. The sheriff's department has long faced allegations about secretive deputy groups running amok in certain stations and jails, controlling command staff there, and promoting a culture of violence. A Loyola Marymount University report released in 2021 identified 18 such groups that have existed over the past 5 decades, including the Executioners at the Compton Station, the Reapers at the South LA Station, and the Bandidos at the East LA Station, which has been a particular hotspot for trouble. In one particular violent incident involving the East LA station, a group of alleged banditos attacked several new deputies at a party in 2018. 2 of the targeted deputies were knocked unconscious, and the brawl sparked several investigations. The East LA station is also at the center of a sprawling lawsuit filed in 2019 by 8 deputies, alleging they had been regularly harassed by Bandidos members who refused to send backup on dangerous calls and pressured them to quit. Though then Sheriff Alex Villanueva told the Civilian Oversight Commission in 2021 that the Bandidos group no longer exists at the East LA station, that summer, the 8 deputies updated their lawsuit to say that the group had just taken on 10 new members. Staff bring us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A broadcast reporter was pushed to the ground, handcuffed and arrested for trespassing yesterday, Wednesday, while covering a news conference about the derailment of a train carrying toxic chemicals in Ohio. News Nation posted video of correspondent Evan Lambert being arrested in the gymnasium of an elementary school in East Palestine, where Governor Mike DeWine was giving an update about the incident. Lambert was held for about 5 hours before being released from jail, News Nation reported. At the end of his news conference, DeWine said he did not authorize the arrest of reporters, and they have every right to report during briefings. If someone was stopped from doing that or told they cannot do that, that is wrong, DeWine said. A following statement from the governor's office said DeWine did not see the incident because a bank of cameras blocked his view, but he did hear a disagreement toward the back of the gymnasium. DeWine has, in the statement, said has always respected the media's right to report live before, during, and after his press briefings, the statement said. Mike Viquera, News Nation's Washington bureau chief, called the arrest an infuriating violation of the First Amendment. The Washington, D.C.-based Lambert could still face charges of disorderly conduct and criminal trespassing, News Nation said. The Columbiana County Sheriff's Office administration said the arrest was made by officers from the East Palestine Police Department. A message seeking comment from the department was not returned. About 50 train cars, including 10 carrying hazardous materials, derailed in a fiery crash on Friday night on the edge of East Palestine. Federal investigators say a mechanical issue with the rail car axle caused the derailment. Nearby residents in Ohio and neighboring Pennsylvania were ordered to evacuate when authorities decided to release and burn chemicals from 5 tankers filled with vinyl chloride, sending hydrogen chloride and the toxic gas phosgene into the air. At the news conference, authorities said sampling had shown air quality in the area was safe and residents could return home, although DeWine said some residents may want to wait until the air inside their homes is checked. The news conference started more than 2 hours late, and DeWine started speaking at the same instant. Lambert had to do a live broadcast from the back of the gym. Preston Swigert, a photographer who was with Lambert, told News Nation. Swigert said police officers approached Lambert and asked him to stop talking. Lambert finished the live report, but was then asked to leave by authorities who tried to forcibly remove him from the event. From their standpoint, he did not obey orders, Swigert said. Gymnasiums are echoey and loud and sound kind of carries, so I'm guessing that they just didn't like the fact that there was sound competing with the governor speaking, even though it was all the way at the other end of the room. The anchor handling the report said she heard the reporter saying, "The governor has started speaking. I'm being told that I have to quit my report," but was cut short. Video, captured by News Nation affiliate WKBN-TV, showed Lambert on his face on the ground, being handcuffed. He was then taken outside and placed in the back of a sheriff's patrol car. Summer Valentine of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Missouri's Republican-led House yesterday, Wednesday, voted against banning minors from openly carrying firearms on public land without adult supervision. The proposal to ban children from carrying guns without adult supervision in public failed by a 104-39 vote. Only one Republican voted in support of it. Democratic Representative Donna Behringer said police in her district asked for the change to stop 14-year-olds walking down the middle of the street in the city of St. Louis carrying AR-15s. Now they have been emboldened, and they are walking around with them, Behringer said, until they actually brandish them and brandish them with intent. Our police officers' hands are handcuffed. Missouri lawmakers in 2017 repealed concealed carry requirements in most situations. The measure was part of an hours-long House debate on the best way to fight crime, particularly in the St. Louis area. Republican Representative Lane Roberts, a former Joplin, Missouri police chief and state public safety director, initially included the restrictions on children possessing guns in a broader crime bill, which the House voted to give initial approval to later on Wednesday. But lawmakers on a House committee that Roberts leads stripped the provision on guns last week. Every time we talked about the provision related to guns, we knew that that was going to be difficult on our side of the aisle, Roberts said. Republicans decried the effort of an unneeded infringement on gun rights. Really? While it may seem intuitive that a 14-year-old has no legitimate purpose, it doesn't actually mean they're going to harm someone. We don't know that yet, said Representative Tony Lavasco, a Republican from the St. Louis suburb of O'Fallon. Generally speaking, we don't charge people with crimes because we think they're going to hurt someone. Well, why do you make kids take driver training? Maybe they want to get rid of that. Maybe they don't want to prevent a problem before it happens, but figure it out after. I've always hated that libertarian laissez-faire attitude. Other provisions in the measure would allow the governor to appoint a special prosecutor in counties with high crime rates, a provision targeted at St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner. Republican lawmakers for years have criticized Gardner, a 47-year-old Democrat first elected in 2016, as St. Louis's first black female prosecutor. She is one of several progressive prosecutors elected in recent years, with a focus on creating more fairness in the criminal justice system, but Republican lawmakers saying she's not doing enough to fight crime. And that's why Republicans want to put guns, AR-15s, in the hands of every 14-year-old kid they can find. All right, let us go to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work. Sorry, I'm late. Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi. Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Arthritis is common among veterans. Traumatic and overuse injuries during active duty are risk factors for developing arthritis. Fortunately, there are low-cost or no-cost strategies that can help veterans manage arthritis. Physical activity can reduce pain and improve function. It can also help improve mood and play a role in managing other chronic conditions, such as heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. You can do low-impact activities, such as walking, biking, swimming, and water aerobics, all good forms of exercise. Arthritis-specific classes can help you get started. Information on classes, exercise programs, and tools are available at cdc.gov/arthritis. These resources can help reduce pain and improve function. Learning self-management techniques can help all veterans become more active, improve their overall quality of life, and thrive.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. It doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
When you learned about the killing of Tyre Nichols, were you appalled? And I have a follow-up question.
I'm Lily Ledbetter, and this is a Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
And the follow-up question is, were you surprised? Tyre Nichols died at the hands of members of the Scorpion unit of the Memphis Police Department. Scorpion, disbanded by the Memphis police chief after Tyre Nichols was killed, was formed in November 2021, a specialized squad of some 40 officers mandated to bring down violent crime. There now are many credible reports that Scorpion was operating on its own terms, with residents testifying to Scorpion's repeated acts of physical intimidation and harassment. Young black men were targeted. The city is 65% black, yet according to the police department's own data, 90% of the people arrested by Scorpion were black. And black residents in Memphis were 3 times more likely than whites to be subjected to physical force by the police, 3 times as likely. This data predating the creation of Scorpion. Indeed, it goes back 7 years. A Scorpion tactic: drive up to people on the street, jump out of the cruiser or unmarked car, and engage in the vehicular equivalent of stop and frisk. It is not clear how many Scorpion members operated with these tactics, but clearly some did. Which raises, yet again, the perennial question: who will police the police?
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1854. That was the day that novelist George Leppard died in Philadelphia. Leppard was friends with Edgar Allan Poe. He is most well known for his novel about Philadelphia titled Quaker City. The book is considered to be one of the first American muckraking novels. Muckrakers write to uncover misconduct or muck in public life. The book cast the city elites in an unflattering light and explored the crooked underbelly of the city. The elites did not much care for the book, but the working class made it the best-selling novel in the country. In 1849, Leppard helped found the Brotherhood of the Union, which later became known as the Brotherhood of America. It was a secret benevolent society, a kind of Freemasons for the working man. The Brotherhood issued badges and medals. They borrowed from names and symbols of the American Revolution. They promoted a shorter workday, education, and election reform. By 1850, the Brotherhood had expanded to 19 states. Leppard was elected Supreme Washington, the highest title for the leadership position of the group. He died a few years later, succumbing to tuberculosis at the age of just 31. But the brotherhood continued long after his death into the late 20th century. In a book about New York, Lepard once wrote, "Enormous wealth is only enormous crime." Yes, we may phrase it as we will, the immense concentration of wealth in the hands of any one man or in the hands of any corporate power is an evil fraught with more danger to the happiness and liberty of the nation than all the crowned tyrants of the world. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 29 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of around 62, and some clouds this morning will give way to generally sunny skies in the afternoon, and the winds will have picked up from their steady, light, and variable for the last several days. We'll be coming out of the south at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Partly cloudy skies this evening will give way to occasional showers overnight, bringing with it about a quarter inch of rain. Lows in the mid to upper 30s, winds out of the south at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then overcast with rain showers tomorrow. Highs in the low 50s, winds light and variable. Looks like pollen is still rated as none here in the little town of Rogue River. The air quality index for the Rogue River Valley region is in the good range at 23 parts per million, and that daytime UV index has now ticked down into the low range at level 2. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.32 inches. Visibility is at 0.06 miles. And relative humidity is at 97%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 49 degrees and partly cloudy. Paris is 45 degrees and sunny. Rome is 50 degrees and sunny. Kyiv is 27 and fair. Kabul is 33 and cloudy. Hong Kong is 68 degrees and fair. Tokyo is 37 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 66 degrees and fair. San Francisco, California is 47 degrees and sunny. And New York, New York is 48 degrees Fahrenheit, cloudy with a small craft advisory, so do take care. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Ever-present anonymous staff at the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. China says it was smeared in Joe Biden's State of the Union address that repeatedly mentioned competition between the two countries. China does not fear competing with the U.S., but is opposed to defining the entire China-U.S. relationship in terms of competition. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said at a daily briefing yesterday, Wednesday, "It is not the practice of a responsible country to smear a country or restrict the country's legitimate development rights under the excuse of competition, even at the expense of disrupting the global industrial and supply chain," Mao said. "China will defend its interest, and the U.S. should work with it to promote the return of bilateral relations to a track of sound and stable development," she said. Sounds like she's in competition. Mao's comments came against a background of raging disputes over trade, Taiwan, human rights, and access to advanced technologies, just like competitive nations do. Biden mentioned China and its leader at least 7 times in his address Tuesday night, that leader being Xi Jinping, of course, focusing mainly on how the U.S. was increasingly prepared to compete with Beijing while also seeking to avoid conflict. "I've made clear with President Xi that we seek competition, not conflict," Biden said. "I will make no apologies that we are investing to make America strong, investing in American innovation, in industries that will define the future, and that China's government is intent on dominating," he said. Biden said his administration is committed to work with China where it can advance American interests and benefit the world. However, he also warned that if China threatens our sovereignty, we will act to protect our country, a pointed reference to the shooting down of a Chinese spy balloon that traversed the continental United States. China says the balloon was an unmanned civilian airship used for meteorological research and has strongly protested the U.S. action while threatening unspecified countermeasures. The incident prompted U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken to cancel a trip to China this week that had stirred hopes of reversing the continued deterioration between Beijing and Washington.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Kai Kupferschmidt of Science Magazine brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And there was an update as we began the show. This update came in following the publication of this story. Twitter announced an extension of the current free Twitter API access through February 13th. After that date, it said it would offer low-level API usage for $100 a month, but the details on what kind of access researchers will have remain unclear. When Twitter announced on the 2nd of February that the social media platform would end free access to its application program interface, known as the API, in a week, meaning today, a clock began ticking for Jean-Philippe Cointet. Like other researchers interested in topics such as political polarization or how information spreads, the social scientist at Sciences Po uses the API to freely gather data on the hundreds of millions of tweets sent daily. If Twitter tries to charge a significant price for information, some of his projects will not be possible. When we got the news last week, we started to rush on a few data collection projects, he says. As a result, there has been an over-reliance on the platform, according to Dean Freeland, a political communications researcher at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I think that this API policy change is really going to force people to look at other platforms that have been understudied, he says, pointing to Reddit as an example. Reddit has more users than Twitter. The data are actually equally easy to access, if not easier, but people haven't been paying as much attention to it. All right, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Coarsely. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.